With all love and respect, your friend, young he, Roger Wilco.
Roger Wilco. She's a good kid.
Yeah, you know something? I really miss her.
Yeah?
I wish she was here right now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I could use a shave.
Look at some booze. I haven't had a decent. Come on, get him in the cell. Oh, yeah.
If you're having an attack of the hungries right now, you're in luck. Subway's still open.
Channel 5's Gale Nye, keeping you in touch.
Dan Quayle on value.
It is time we Americans stand up for our values, stand up for America, and say that America is great because of our people and our values.
Dan Quayle on the cultural elite.
We do not think tolerance requires abandoning our belief in the family. The cultural elites respect neither tradition nor standards. They are wrong.
Dan Quayle on the opposition.
I'm beginning to feel a little bit like Ross Perot. You're already applauding and I haven't said anything.
He's number 2 on the ticket, but number 1 on the stump. And whatever he's doing, he's got your attention. Tonight, a conversation with Vice President Dan Quayle.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Vice President Quayle has been on the opposition's home turf all day down in Little Rock, Arkansas, doing what vice presidents do in this particular political season. We're coming into that part of the campaign, in other words, when vice presidents engage in their least charitable rhetoric, leaving the president to appear at his most presidential. There's no particular agenda this evening, no special reason why Mr. Quayle is here tonight, except that we've been asking him to appear on Nightline for quite a while now, and I'm very grateful to him for joining us at the end of a long day. Nice to have you with us, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you.
Actually, you were pretty gentle today in Little Rock, more gentle, I think, than we expected you to be. May have had something to do with the economic indicators today. We'll get to that a little bit later. But generally speaking, are you comfortable with the sort of hatchet man job that is normally allocated to a vice president?
Well, I wouldn't call it a hatchet man job. I'd just pointing out a few facts, describing your opponent, trying to frame the debate and focus on some important issues.
But you're the one who has to, I mean, you know, there's nothing unique to you about this.
No.
All vice presidents are expected to travel the lower road so that the president can, in fact, be at his most presidential.
Well,
you're such a nice, genial guy.
The vice presidential role, that's for sure, rather than the presidential role. And there are things that I'd say that the president wouldn't.
What kind of things would you say that the president wouldn't?
Well, I think that there are certain things that I can emphasize. There's a little different rhetoric that I can take since I'm the vice president and not the president. Some people call it good cop, bad cop. I don't call it that. I think it's just fulfilling the role right now. The president says he's not going to engage himself in the campaign. Guess who's going to be fully engaged in the campaign? Me.
Now, what does that mean? What are you going to have to do? Are you going to take the fight to, so far, you've only been taking it to Ross Perot, not so much to Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, today I was in Little Rock, and you're right in your opening comment there that at least the national press that was on my plane, they were somewhat mildly complaining on the way back, saying, well, this wasn't a tough enough speech. I said, come on, give me a break. I said, this was a serious review of Bill Clinton's national economic strategy. And in Little Rock, we pointed out the problems with it. It raises taxes, raises spending. We think that's the wrong way to go. It was not the sharp rhetoric that perhaps they were anticipating, because it was more of trying to put the economic plan in perspective. It's going to be a major issue. We had some disappointing news this morning on the economic front. And so let's have a serious, substantive review, put aside the real sharp political rhetoric, save that for another day. There's plenty of time for that. So today was a little bit different approach than what I'd taken with Ross Perot, where I was really trying to help define Ross Perot and let the American people think about it for a while. And the more I think that they're exposed to Ross Perot, the more that he seems to go down.
Let me defer Ross Perot and the unemployment figures until our next segment. I'd like to ask you about you, because you are, in many respects, one of the main issues that certainly the Democrats are raising, and I rather suspect Perot will be raising at some point or another in the campaign. Because for good or ill, people are looking at you and saying, what if Dan Quayle became president? Your admirers think that would be a wonderful thing. Your detractors think that would be a disaster. What kind of a president would you be, and why do you think you're qualified to be president?
Well, there's no use for me to get into start talking about my qualifications for president. I'm vice president. I am prepared. I've worked with this president. I've worked with him every day. He has chosen me to be his vice president. I've worked hard. I'm loyal. I know what the job is. And Ted, I think I could do a very good job if, in fact, the situation arose.
Well, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but indeed, one of the campaign issues that Clinton has already raised, he's putting it in terms of, and you can be assured that I will pick a vice president who is qualified to be president. I realize you have to be deferential to the president. He's your boss, and it would be unseemly for you to look as though you were after the job, and I'm not suggesting you are. All I'm asking you is, what would be your qualifications to the presidency?
Well, I know what the job is. I have been vice president for 3.5 years. I think I've done a reasonably good job, but I'll let that for the American people to judge. They know me a lot better. The president knows me. The people that work with me know who I am, what I'm capable of. I'm there. I'm prepared. And let's see what happens. Okay, we'll take a break, and I'm, with your kind permission, going to come back to that issue. More of our conversation with the vice president in a moment.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Lens Crafters.
These slip down one more time. I'm fed up with glasses that don't fit.
You don't have to put up with glasses that don't fit anymore. Because at Lens Crafters, we have so many new ways to make glasses more comfortable.
Lens Crafters glasses fit your snug points with features like new snug fit hinges that hug your head and won't lose their gentle hold. Lens Crafters, for that cushion of comfort you've always wanted.
I never knew glasses could be this comfortable.
Lens Crafters, better fit for greater comfort in about an hour.
Ace Best Buys are terrific values every month, like these.
Control pests with Ace insect sprays and home fogger for just $1.97 each. And Ace 32-gallon trash cans are only $8.97 each.
Ace Best Buys.
Another reason Ace is the place.
For you.
Last time I stained my house with that other brand. This time, I'm using Thompson Stain.
Only Thompson's House and Deck Stain contains Thompson's Water Seal. It waterproofs better than even the leading brand's premium stain.
Now that's beautiful protection.
Thompson Stain.
The Brooker boys are here on tour. What's been the highlight of your Lake Edna stop, Matt?
I'd say this new honey barbecue chicken, Russ. Fried chicken glazed in a special sauce with a touch of honey. Get 2 pieces with baked beans, coleslaw, and a biscuit in a roundup meal for just $2.99.
Woo-wee! That was completely unsolicited.
Oh, what?
The 2-piece honey barbecue roundup meal, just $2.99, or the 8-piece meal, just $9.99 for a limited time in Lake Edna or your neck of the woods.
What happens to your car if it's stolen? Our hidden cameras catch car thieves in action and watch them getting caught in the act. 2020, Friday.
And we're back once again with Vice President Dan Quayle. One more crack at it, because you were already going after Ross Perot for not being specific enough. With all due respect, you weren't very specific about your qualifications for president, except to say you'd been the vice president.
What do you want me to do? List my age, what I've done, my public career, what I know about the job, and we can go on and on. I think it's a, you know, in all due respect to you, I mean, how you qualified for the job. The president has selected me to be the vice president. I think I've done a good job. I know I've been loyal. I know that I'm prepared. I know what the job is, and I think I could do it.
All those things that you have listed, the loyalty, make you a good candidate. They don't necessarily make you a good president. And I realize this is the most exquisitely difficult thing for a vice president to do, to appear on the one hand to be presidential without appearing as though you're getting too eager for another man's job?
Well, you can go back in history and ask that same question to a lot of other people that became president. You and I don't know whether I'll become president, what my future is going to be. Who knows? How qualified were the people like Harry Truman and to others that assumed the office and did a darn good job, notwithstanding a lot of questions that were raised about their qualifications. I've gone back and read a little bit about what they've said about past vice presidents and their so-called qualifications. Many of them gone on to be president, and they've done a darn good job.
What worries you most about Ross Perot?
I think there's really something to this compulsion to investigate that he apparently has. When he has these stories come out and we read about him investigating people, you have to wonder what kind of a president he would be if he had the power of the CIA, the IRS, the FBI. Who would he investigate next? And that is rather a scary proposition. He also, I think, that somewhat is contemptuous of the Constitution. He made a statement one time that the reason Japan and Germany were ahead of us is that they got their constitutions in 1945, as if our Constitution was somehow an impediment to productivity. I'm not exactly sure what he was talking about, but he's certainly showing a great disdain for the Constitution. So there's a contempt there for the Constitution, this compulsion to investigate. That is something that the American people have to weigh very heavily before they decide to vote for or against him.
Flip it the other way around for a moment. He is clearly enjoying, although he's taken a little bit of a dip in the polls lately, he is clearly enjoying extraordinary support among a much larger segment of the population than I think you and the president must feel comfortable with. To what do you attribute that popularity and that reluctance to support either the president or Bill Clinton?
Well, there's obviously a great deal of frustration in America, and Ross Perot is able to tap right into that. He says, a quote today I saw, he says, "Now remember, I didn't create that deficit, didn't have anything to do with it, never been in government, never been in politics." There's something new and refreshing about somebody that just all of a sudden bounces on the scene and says, "Here, I'm here to help you." And we're glad to have people volunteering to run for president. I think it's good for the system. The competition of ideas never hurt anyone. But now that he's gotten this favorable bounce somewhat with the American people, they've got to stop and analyze Ross Perot. And this is where I think that his shortcoming will be. As the more that they look at him, the more that he's scrutinized, I think that probably maybe the further that he will fall.
So far you have spoken principally about something that he denies, namely this business of investigating everyone. You've placed a great deal of emphasis on that. He poo-poos that, suggests that maybe in a couple of litigation cases his lawyers have hired private investigators. What else, though? What troubles you about the man? What troubles you about his programs?
Well, we don't know much about his programs. His economic plan evidently is Paul Tsongas's plan. He held that up the other night. I think it was on this network.
On Peter Jennings' program.
Peter Jennings. He says, "Here, this is my economic plan."
He said he liked it.
And he said
nothing wrong with that. It's a very smart plan.
He's running for president. He said he's going to be studying the issues. He still hasn't come forth with an economic plan. We look forward to him coming forward with an economic plan. Bill Clinton did come forward with one that I think is entirely in the wrong direction. I don't think it's going to generate economic growth, because Bill Clinton is the warmed-over Democratic approach. He's going to raise taxes, and he's going to raise spending. We feel that we ought to reduce taxes and restrain spending to generate economic growth. But at least Bill Clinton has one, and that's what I talked about in Little Rock today. Ross Perot doesn't. I think Bill Clinton also left out some very major points in an economic plan. He doesn't talk about regulation, doesn't talk about legal reform, and doesn't touch, Ted, and you spent a lot of time on this issue with some senators one evening, doesn't touch the mandatory spending in the federal budget deficit.
Since you raised that subject, and you're quite correct, there were 6 senators on this broadcast proposing, and ABC, as you know, has offered the time that Mr. Perot and Governor Clinton and President Bush appear in order to be questioned by Senator Rudman and the senator from South Dakota, forgive me.
Conrad.
Conrad.
North Dakota.
North Dakota. be questioned by these two senators on the subject of the deficit. We haven't heard anything from the president. If you think it's such a good idea, you're going to recommend to the president?
Well, I think it's a good idea to talk about the deficit and how you're going to reduce the deficit. I'm not going to get in and commit the president right here on this show.
But would it be a good idea for him to give an hour exclusively to that subject, to be questioned by two men who clearly know a lot about it?
Well, he comes in contact with Senator Rudman quite a bit. Senator
I'm talking about in front of the American public.
I know you're talking about in front of the American people. Obviously, I'm not going to get into making a commitment for the president, but I'll be glad to answer those questions right now about the deficit and how the president plans on doing it.
I'll tell you what, we're going to be talking about two numbers. There's 7 and 8, and there's a decimal point between the two of them. That's the new unemployment rate, but we have to take another break. We'll talk about unemployment when we come back with the Vice President.
Sears 4th of July paint sale means huge savings on lots of brands. Like Weatherbeater exterior flat, only $12.99. Easy Living interior satin, just $13.99. But hurry, sale ends Saturday at Sears.
It's time to save big on Goodyear all-season radials for cars and light trucks. Buy 3, get the 4th free. Hurry, save big, and see why we say the best tires in the world and in your neighborhood have Goodyear written all over them.
I think that people don't realize how much sugar they eat. You're more concerned about what you put in your car than what you put in your body. You got the sugar, you got the pink stuff, and you got the Equal.
Equal has the great taste of NutraSweet and no saccharin.
I choose Equal.
If you don't get to sleep, I won't get to sleep.
Nitol safely helps you fall asleep fast so you can get your Z's. Nitol or maximum strength Nitol.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
A simple comparison between the Ford Taurus and the Honda Accord. Ford Taurus comes with a driver's side airbag. So does the Honda Accord. Ford Taurus is also available with a passenger side airbag. As for Honda, well, Honda will eventually copy this great idea. But can you afford to wait? Think Ford first for safety. See your Ford dealer today and prepare to be impressed.
When you want the world, and you want it now, the best place to get it is ABC's World News Now with Aaron Brown and Lisa McCree. Over now.
And we're back once again with Vice President Quayle. You've had all day to practice this one, Mr. Vice President. Let me remind you of something that the President's press secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, said a few weeks ago when the last unemployment figures came out, and it struck me as one of the most tortured pieces of logic I'd ever heard. His explanation was it was an indication, they were up a tick, and it was an indication that the economy was getting better because more people were trying to re-enter the economy, and that's why the unemployment figures were up. You're not going to try that one tonight, are you?
No. Ted, the news on the unemployment front today was disappointing. You cannot interpret it any other way. What I think would hopefully happen now is that there will be a major effort once again to try to get the Congress to cough up the President's economic growth package. He submitted it at the beginning of this year. He wanted it by March the 20th. They sent him a tax increase. He vetoed that. They didn't override his veto. So now Congress has got to figure out either to send the President his growth package or to do nothing. And I hope that they don't do, I hope that they send the President his package. If they do nothing, then they're going to have to go home and answer to the American people. But maybe we can take this disappointing news and to use it to get the President's economic growth package, which will generate jobs and help put America back to work.
Let me just ask you something. I mean, there comes a point when, and I think we have seen it, and I think that's one reason why Ross Perot is so popular right now, when the American public gets awfully tired of seeing Congress point at the White House and the White House point at Congress. That's not an answer, Mr. Vice President. With all due respect, the figures keep going up. They've been going up for 3 of the past 4 years. A couple of years ago, I think unemployment was still down at 5.2. Last year at this time, it was at 6.9. Now
it's the highest since 1984.
Now it's up to 7.8. It's the highest in about 10 years or 8 years.
Yeah, 84.
And people are beginning to wonder not so much about Clinton's economic program or Perot's economic program, but your economic program, yours and the president's.
Well, the president has an economic program. It's been pending before the Congress. It's a capital gains rate reduction. It's a $5,000 tax credit for a first-time home buyer. We know that those two incentives will create hundreds of thousands of jobs. It's pending on Capitol Hill. But Ted, you put your finger on a fundamental problem, and that is this so-called blame game. And the American people are tired of it. I think they're finally tired of divided government. We have had divided government in this country 20 out of the last 24 years. We've only had 4 years where you've had a totally unified government. About the first 150 years of this nation, a divided government was almost unheard of.
Now, we can get that one of two ways. We can either get rid of the Democratic majority in Congress, or we can get rid of the president.
That is true, and I'm willing and will be making that case to the American people. That they tell me they want change. I believe they want change. And if you want legitimate change, the only way you're going to get real legitimate change, rather than having this political stalemate, is to have one party control the White House and the Congress. Obviously, I want the president to re-elect him to serve 4 more years, and therefore, if we want the change that the president's advocating, he has to have a Republican Congress. If they want to go back to a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress, they can go back and be reminded of what Jimmy Carter and the Democratic Congress brought us in the late 1970s.
You know, the only problem that I see with that, Mr. Vice President, if I'm sitting out there as an individual voter, I've only got one vote that I can cast. I know that I can only cast it for one congressman, one senator, and one president. Now, if I want to make sure that I'm going to have one-party government, the only way I can be sure of it, because I don't know what everyone else around the rest of the country is going to do, is by getting rid of the president. Isn't it? I mean, isn't there a certain danger inherent in what you're advising here?
I don't think that we have any choice. I know the argument well. They'll say, look, we can't change the Democratic Congress, so therefore elect a Democratic president if you all are going to talk about a unified government. We don't have a choice. The American people want change. The president wants change. He cannot get change with a Democratic Congress. And if they're serious, if the American people come November are serious about change and they like the president's idea of change, then they're going to have to elect a Republican Congress if they want change. Obviously, there are always a risk involved, but this time around, we have to talk about the idea of a united government. As I said, 20 out of the last 24 years, we've had a divided government.
You've been in politics most of your life, most of your adult life.
Since I was 29.
You know that the worst thing that can happen to an incumbent is a lousy economy. What needs to happen between now and November for you and the president to be reelected?
Obviously, a lousy economy is not helpful at all. But it's not the only factor in a campaign, especially for electing a president. If we had growth at 4% and unemployment down at 4% instead of where it is today, obviously that there wouldn't even be a contest. That the president would be reelected by a landslide.
But even the foreign policy thing doesn't seem to be cutting that well. I mean, the president was complaining about that publicly the other day. That people don't seem to be of a mind to remember Desert Storm or to look at what's happening with the Soviet or with the Russians. It's just not cutting very well. Nothing seems to be working for you folks right now.
Well, I think there's probably a lot more going for this president than maybe your perception or others' viewpoint. First of all, he does have an excellent track record in foreign policy. But foreign policy is not a major issue right now with the American public. The economy is. But the economy will be a significant factor, as it always is in any campaign. I've always said the pocketbook and the war and peace. Those are the major issues, and it'll probably be very similar this time around. But Ted, when the American people go in and vote for a president, yes, they look at the economic situation, they look at their future, but they ask some rather substantive, introspective questions, like, do I trust this guy? Does he have the character? Does he have the leadership? And these are rather subtle, sophisticated issues that the American people roll over in their mind in quite a bit of detail. They're beginning to accumulate facts.
Are those going to be the little hot points that you're going to be hitting? I mean, we've all been looking at anticipating what you and the president are going to be doing. You especially, because as we said at the beginning of the program, you're the one who has to get out there and do the dirty work. When you talk about the character issues, there's always the subtle implication look at his character, compare it to the other guy's character.
Absolutely.
Slick Willie, Ross Perot, right?
It's an issue.
That's the point you're making?
It's not only a point I'm making, it's what the American people look at when they elect a president. Character, I don't know when character hasn't been an issue. Of course it's going to be an issue. They want to know, they know who George and Barbara Bush are. They know his integrity, they know his family commitment, they know where he came from, they know what he thinks, they know what kind of job that he is capable of doing. And now they're in the process of trying to figure out who Bill and Hillary Clinton are and who Ross Perot is.
Let me jump in for a minute because we only have 1 minute left. What's going to happen over there in what used to be Yugoslavia? American men going to be involved in the war over there?
On the ground, well, we're going to work with the United Nations. We have a United Nations peacekeeping resolution that we're working to try to get implemented. It's a tragedy. It's ethnic purification is what's going on.
But are Americans going to be involved in the fighting? Can you see that happening?
Well, I don't. It wouldn't be set. Let me just say this: that they would be working with the peacekeeping forces to try to make sure the airport gets open.
If they get hurt, American voters aren't going to care if they were fighting with the UN or fighting alone.
Well, that's true, and the president obviously is weighing this very carefully. But we are working with the United Nations. Other nations are involved. It is certainly in our interest. It's in America's interest to have a ceasefire and to have stability in what we used to call Yugoslavia.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. I'll be back in a moment.
In our universe, there is always the unknown, the unpredictable. All we can do is prepare for it.
AT&T is now installing FastStar. It can detect a cable cut instantly, so 800 calls can get back in minutes instead of hours.
We can send flowers for any occasion, anywhere, but only if our 800 service is up and running. Our 800 service isn't just a phone line, it's a lifeline.
I miss you.
AT&T has the most reliable 800 service, period.
AT&T. Call us.
Weekend. No tie, no briefcase, just plastic.
It all boils down to this. No other card you can carry is accepted in more places and in more ways.
Food.
At home and abroad.
I got it.
Than MasterCard. It's the only card you need.
Rooms.
MasterCard.
Not a bad day's work.
Master the moment.
When a muffler goes, some people look for a cheap replacement.
Fact is, they can get a quality Midas muffler starting at $24.95. Fact is, a guaranteed economizer muffler starting at $24.95. Don't believe anybody ever beats Midas.
This is the time to use Ace Paint. Hey, Ace knows what it takes to make great paint because Ace makes its own. Ace Paint, top quality in every drop, guaranteed.
Ace 5-star acrylic latex house paint is just $8.97 a gallon.
Another reason Ace is the place for you.
The last thing the average person wants is the average car. That's why the new Mazda brought you the return of the pure sports car, the all-new RX-7, and the return of the Roadster, the Miata. That's why our 626 feels personal, and our MX-6 feels timeless. It's why every Mazda will fulfill its promise in a way no other car can.
On the next Good Morning America, across the nation, a joyous celebration of independence.
Also, women and exercise. When is it too much, and what are the risks? On Good Morning America.
Tomorrow, a special Nightline. We take the road less traveled by and find America. Pack your own memories and join us for an anniversary celebration. A drive on Route 66 tomorrow night. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
If you wish a videocassette version of Nightline, the cost is $14.98 plus $3.95 shipping and handling.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Saturday was a necessary force of police brutality.
This death is on us. I hold you responsible for it, Scally. If they're guilty, I'll nail them to the cross myself. Guys are right. You ain't one of us anymore.
The Commish, Saturday.
Rain early, otherwise decreasing clouds overnight.